He started hosting strange gatherings, spending gold like water, and ordering musicians and actors to perform twisted plays about sin, death, and redemption. His priests no longer quoted the Bible, but the names of fallen angels. The first disappearances seemed too small to notice. A child gone missing from a nearby village. A farmhand who never returned home. Rather, his crimes followed a consistent, organized pattern over a period of at least 8 years, primarily between 1432 and 1440. His victims were almost exclusively young boys or very few times women, typically between the ages of 6 and 18. Gilles de Rais harmed women stems almost entirely from his later association with the fairy tale Bluebeard, Barbe Bluey, written by Charles Perrault in 169, 257 years after de Rais's death. Perrault's fictional character murders his wives. It was a moral fable. Over time, popular culture mistakenly merged the real nobleman with the fictional villain, leading to widespread but false beliefs. He admitted to personally killing a great number of children. He described methods that included decapitation, throat cutting, dismemberment, and bludgeoning. He stated that he often watched his victims die slowly, deriving pleasure from their suffering. In one deposition, he confessed to hanging them from hooks and watching them struggle, or placing them on wooden crosses and mutilating them while alive. Servant Poitou corroborated these accounts, adding that de Rais would sometimes kiss the severed heads or limbs of his victims and express admiration for their beauty even in death. De Rais confessed to engaging in sodomy with his victims both before and after their deaths. His servant Henriette testified that de Rais would often sexually assault boys immediately after luring them into private rooms, sometimes before killing them, sometimes after. In several instances, de Rais reportedly forced his servants to participate or witness these acts as a means of binding them to his crimes through shared guilt. The confessions reveal a disturbing obsession with the physical appearance of his victims. De Rais expressed a preference for boys with fair hair and delicate features, and he would often keep their bodies for hours or even days after death, engaging in further acts of violation. This pattern aligns with modern understandings of paraphilic and necrophilic behavior, though such terms did not exist in the 15th century. The courts treated these acts as both criminal and heretical, violating both secular laws against murder and church laws against crimes against nature. The consistency of these admissions across multiple interrogations, and their corroboration by multiple accomplices, lends them significant historical credibility. After committing murder, Gilles de Rais took deliberate steps to destroy evidence and prevent discovery. Trial testimonies describe how bodies were disposed of in ways designed to leave no trace. In the castle of Machecoul, servants reported that victims were burned in the large hearths of the Great Hall or in specially constructed ovens. At Tiffauges, remains were thrown into the moat or buried beneath floorboards in towers. Poitou stated that on several occasions, he and Henriette were ordered to chop bodies into pieces and incinerate them, scattering the ashes in fields or rivers. De Rais also used deception to manage suspicion. When rumors began to circulate in the countryside about missing children, he staged false deaths, claiming a boy had succumbed to illness, and even held mock funerals with empty coffins to appease grieving families. He bribed local officials and intimidated potential witnesses. His wealth allowed him to operate with impunity for years, as peasants had little recourse against a nobleman of his stature. However, the sheer volume of disappearances eventually overwhelmed his ability to conceal the truth. By 1440, the pattern was so widespread that ecclesiastical authorities could no longer ignore the mounting complaints, leading to the formal investigation that would end his reign of terror. In fact, during his lifetime, Gilles de Rais was married to Catherine de Thouars, a noblewoman. Their marriage was politically arranged, and while they had one daughter, Marie de Rais, there is no evidence of abuse or violence in their relationship. After his arrest, Catherine was not implicated in any crimes, nor did she testify against him, further suggesting no domestic violence or misconduct involving women. Some modern conspiracy theories or sensationalist books, especially from the 19th and 20th centuries, have claimed he participated in satanic rituals involving women. His marriage to Catherine de Valois produced one daughter, and there is no indication in contemporary records of domestic abuse, infidelity, or violence toward his wife. After his arrest, Catherine was not questioned as a victim or witness to crimes against women, something that would have been highly unusual if such acts had occurred. The confusion arises from the 1697 fairy tale Bluebeard by Charles Perrault, which features a nobleman who murders his wives. Though later writers and filmmakers linked this character to Gilles de Rais, Perrault never named de Rais as the inspiration, and historians agree the connection is fictional. The real de Rais was condemned for crimes against children, specifically boys, not for killing wives or female victims. Gilles de Rais's punishment was swift, severe, and unusually transparent for a man of his rank. On September 15, 1440, he was arrested at the church of Saint-Étienne-de-Mermort after attempting to sell a castle that had already been pledged to creditors, a civil offense that gave secular authorities the opening they needed. Once in custody, both the Bishop of Nantes and the representative of the Duke of Brittany launched parallel investigations. Remarkably, de Rais initially denied all charges, but after being confronted with the testimonies of his servants and the threat of excommunication, he confessed in detail before both courts. On October 25, 1440, he was found guilty on all counts: heresy, sodomy, and the murder of 140 or more children, a number derived from witness estimates, though the exact toll remains unknown. The sentence combined ecclesiastical and secular penalties. As a heretic, he was condemned to be relaxed to the secular arm, a legal formula meaning the church handed him over to civil authorities for execution, as the church itself did not carry out death sentences. The secular court sentenced him to be hanged and then burned. The execution took place the following day in Nantes. Contrary to popular myth, de Rais was not burned alive. He was hanged first, and only after death was his body partially consumed by fire, a symbolic act to purify the remains of a heretic. His two chief accomplices, Henriette and Poitou, were executed alongside him. Notably, de Rais displayed remorse in his final hours. He asked forgiveness from the families of his victims, prayed publicly, and urged his servants to confess their own roles. Because of this repentance, the church granted him a Christian burial in the Carmelite church in Nantes, an act of mercy extended only because he died reconciled to the church. His punishment was historically significant. In an era when nobles often escaped justice through privilege or influence, de Rais's trial demonstrated that even the highest ranks could be held accountable, especially when crimes threatened social order on such a scale. The meticulous documentation of the case also makes it one of the earliest known records of what modern criminology would classify as serial killing.